USA should become a dictatorship, but they shouldn't have Trump as their leader. Oh, no, that is a wild take, McNippo. USA should absolutely not become a dictatorship, and they could absolutely not become a dictatorship either, though. Only over their own people. And the thing is, though, that's like the era of superpowers is over. You know, currently there doesn't exist a superpower, and there likely won't ever be another superpower. And would you like? What I'm hearing is you'd like to live under a dictatorship, is what I'm hearing. That's sort of what the Ukrainians are fighting for not to, though. That is a wild take, my friend. I will never agree to the fact that USA should be a dictatorship. If they were to be a dictator, they're not an actual superpower. They wouldn't be able to project that power outside of their own country. I don't think anyone should live under a dictatorship. I mean, if you think living under a dictatorship is so good, why don't you go to North Korea? I think you should take a look at that and see how a proper dictatorship looks like. I don't think that's a very nice circumstance to live under. This is legendary. I'm sure you all heard it, but tribute to these folks. I am a Russian warship, Snake Island. I suggest you lay down your arms and surrender. Otherwise, you will be hit. You copy. Well, this is it. We go tell him to go fuck himself, just in case. Russian warship, go fuck yourself. Man, you know what? That one hits to the heart, man. That hits to the core. I'm honest. But yeah, what a bunch of heroes, man. Fucking legends. Yeah, that is heroic, man. But I wanna pivot into a longer video here. I want to see, because I haven't seen the video, but it stated that. Let's see the thing. It speculated that, we all know our good friend Putin has a lot in common with Hitler. Right now, he sort of finds himself in the same position as Hitler did, where he's fighting a war he can't lose. He can't win, but he can't stop fighting either. Because if this stops, everything comes to light, it'll be the end for this fucking guy. And everything he's doing now, I don't think it's to control the war anymore. I think he's trying to control the narrative, including, what's it called, Telegram, which is a very important tool that they're using in the field to get pictures, to get intel, to share intel quickly amongst soldiers, so they can actually move forward. And by shutting that down, this is, I believe at least, this is basically to shut off the bloggers, to make sure that they can't say anything bad about Russia. And now his army is suffering because of it, man. And I think he knows he can't win, but he wants to control the narrative.
Putin is living in fear. You may not realize it as Russia's leader tries desperately to project power to the world, but he knows that the Ukraine war is lost.
There's literally no power being projected, though. The only thing that people fear about Russia are nukes. Judge me. You judging me, Serpex? Only thing we fear is nukes, and I really mean that. I think that's a scary thing, though. But they're not the only ones who have them. And I guess that's part of why it's so friggin' scary, though, because it's so available now. They can make more spoons from old tanks. Yeah, I really want to get one of those. Y'all seen that? Destroyed made in Russia, recycled in Ukraine. I want to buy one of those. It's a keychain made from a demolished Russian tank.
And he also realizes that something destructive and inevitable is closing in. But here's the kicker: that something isn't Ukraine. Putin is now more scared of his own people and perhaps his own army than he is of.
Yeah, because there's. I haven't looked into this, guys, but I know there's a lot of rebellion inside of Russia now, which I think is great. There's actual armies inside of Russia fighting against Russia, which it's great. It's high time they toss off this old, outdated fossil of a dictator.
The war he started. The most bizarre war is about to begin as Putin is preparing to fight Russia itself. As crazy a concept as that may sound, there are plenty of signs that Putin is preparing for more war inside Russia than he is attempting to win the war in Ukraine. We'll be exploring those signs throughout the video, so make sure you stick with us until the end. But the biggest signal that Putin is losing himself to his own paranoia and his desire to maintain his grasp on leadership in any way that he can comes from what is happening with the Rosgvardia right now. The
Rosgvardia, I have no idea what that is. Do you guys know what that is? Hold on, I can make spoons from old tanks every day, man. I'd eat from a T90 spoon. You know what? If I had a T90 spoon and it has to be a spoon. I was about to suggest a fork and a knife as well. But this is a very spoon-focused channel, so it should be a spoon. The Ukraine just have a massive offensive where they reclaimed a lot of land. Yeah, they did. I believe they... Did they reclaim like 16 kilometers or square kilometers or something? So it started 16 square kilometers? Something like that. Maybe it's mentioned in here. Can we see some clip of the pride of Russian Navy infamous Admiral Guzenstov? Absolutely, man. This is a fairly short video. It's 15 minutes long. I want to plow through this first, and then we'll watch a lot more Russian humor. This is all a Russia-focused stream, guys. I haven't really heard much of that war. Yeah. It's quieting down how much that's being spoken about, though. Am I the only one who feels like that? Like the Epstein files, everything else is just claiming a lot of attention from it. Right.
Rosgvardia is growing in size and power, and this is a sign of Putin's weakness. To understand why, you need to know a little about what the Rosgvardia actually is. This organization is the National Guard of Russia, and it's the largest internal security force the country and, more importantly, Putin has.
Yeah, if we're going to compare them to the National Guard, that's just a bunch of employed people who also are, if am I not mistaken about that, they're in internal security. They're regular folks with regular jobs who regularly do training, right? Is that what the U.S. National Guard is? And this is comparable to that, as far as I understood it. So glad you did this special. Dude, me too, man, me too. I'm so glad you pointed it out. I need a little bit of inspiration to do specials, you know. And I haven't done a lot that I planned. And I'm very bad at planning. But like, when we did the review, the gaming rig review, I thought that was amazing. I think this is cool as well. There's a lot more Russian clips to see. I just want to forgo the humor for like half an hour-ish. But thanks so much for coming up with this, man. Your idea.
It was Putin himself who formed this unit back in 2016, and the group already has a vast remit and significant resources.
Yeah,
long before the latest change that Putin has instituted.
Strengthened the Rosgvardia, which is the National Guard, which is there to control the population, I'm guessing.
Think of the Rosgvardia as being similar to Adolf Hitler's Schutzstaffel or SS.
Oh.
Both the Rosgvardia and SS amount to protection squads designed to guard their leader. They serve as bodyguards and do all of the dirty work that needs doing inside their own country. While the military fights abroad, the Rosgvardia and, in the past, the SS work to maintain security at home, which in turn protects the position of the leader who formed them.
The Rosgvardia is growing, which is the population control, and the Russian army is shrinking. So he's definitely trying to control the narrative of this war from the inside. But like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that it could happen that his own people turn on him? Do you think that's something that could happen? I think that could happen if the war was to end, though. But like, as long as he has meat to throw into the grinder, the war will not end, and he'll be in a sort of a safe position. I guess sooner or later, someone's going to get tired of this dude, huh?
We saw how that worked out for Hitler during the 1940s, and Putin's recent changes to the Rosgvardia, showing that he is growing as paranoid as the Nazi leader as he tries to maintain his grip on power. That's according
He is the Nazi leader.
According to Senior Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, William James Dixon. On February 20th, the Kyiv Post reported that Putin is currently hard at work building the Rosgvardia into a parallel structure that Putin can command both on the...
Hold on, let me just read that for you. Russia building a parallel force to protect Putin at this war. The Kremlin decree appears to elevate Rosgvardia into a powerful parallel force outside of the defense ministry, bolstering regime security and raising risk of future internal rifts.
Building the Rosgvardia into a parallel structure that Putin can command both on the Ukraine battlefield and use to guard himself against the threats from within Russia itself. The latter was always the Rosgvardia's task in many ways. What we're seeing now is the further development of that group into what can only be deemed as Putin's personal army. The Rosgvardia...
Yeah, but hold on. Toskanen says Rosgard wasn't that efficient too. Remember when Prigozhin turned around and started to march towards Rosga? He got pretty close without any resistance. Putin has Rosgard, so army or civilians can't turn on him. Yeah. That is true, man. That is true. And well, because I was just about to ask that question, though. What if someone a little further down, but closer to the army, wants to do something about the situation they're in? Wouldn't that just put a lot of enemy soldiers very close to Putin? Is what I'm thinking, Mr. Putler. Yeah. Let's hope that can be a thing
now operates
very
outside
soon.
the scope of Russia's defense ministry, essentially making it more powerful from a decision-making standpoint than the very organization that is overseeing Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And thanks to a recent Kremlin decree, spearheaded by Putin himself, the Rosgvardia is being elevated to the point where its director, Viktor Zolotov, will only ever have to answer to Putin himself.
Who is Viktor Zolotov, though? You guys know anything about this fucker? Other than he looks like a train wreck. Yeah, I mean, it's the Russian way, you know.
Will only ever have to answer to Putin himself. But why do this? Why would Putin create an army of his own when Russia's military is fighting and dying in enormous numbers in Ukraine? We just gave you the answer by asking the question. Putin knows that this war has been disastrous for his country in ways that we're going to explain later in the video. And now, as Dixon explains, there has been a shift in Putin's mindset.
Do you think he believes he's losing this war? Do you think that he believes that? Do you think he believes that he can win this war? Where do you guys stand on that? I'm curious. I don't think this... He must know that it's over, right? He must know that he has lost. I mean, Operation Spiderweb, everything is just being blown up from the inside now. He must know that he has lost, right? Wait, mindset? Does Putler have a brain? Dude, it's I don't think he does, man. I don't think he does, but he's been preparing for this for a long time, you know. I mean, if any other country, like including China, America, anything, if they did what Russia did now, they'd be in a hell of trouble. But they've been preparing for this for more than a decade. They've been preparing to be isolationist, and that has really propped up their efforts in the war. It didn't make as much of a difference, all those sanctions that we hoped. Yeah, he probably knows. That's why he's making a cuck circle to protect him when someone tries to assassinate him. Yeah. I'm betting those guys are pretty loyal, though. I mean, you don't want to be one of his dudes and then turn on him, right?
Russia's president knows that he has lost the war that he started. Yes, the fighting is ongoing and Russia is making slow progress. So slow that we haven't seen anything as crawlingly sluggish since World War I, but progress nonetheless. However, that was supposed to be Russia's version of a blitzkrieg, devolved into a years-long fight that shows no signs of ending. And Putin...
Special military operation, a very special military operation at that.
...knows that his people are weary. That support is waning for the invasion, and according to Dixon, the strengthening of the Rosgvardia is a sign that Putin is now trying to insulate himself from public unrest and anger from the elites. The Rosgvardia today is not what it was when Putin formed it. Rather than being an internal policing structure, Dixon notes, it has become something akin to the Islamic Revolution.
Something akin to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. What does that mean, though? No, he doesn't know. I strongly believe that people who trust him keep feeding him everything is gone by the plan and on schedule and shit. Yeah. It's the dictator's dilemma. There's a name for that, even. It's no one's going to give the dictator the bad news, right? No one's going to tell him that his plan is shit. No one's going to tell him that we're losing a war. That's no one wants to do that because I mean, he's known for killing his rivals, right? He's known for killing people he dislikes. He even stole someone's Super Bowl ring. Does anyone remember who? Can anyone Google whose Super Bowl ring he stole? Yeah, Serpix, 100% agreed. 100% agreed, my guy.
Revolutionary Guard Corps, a Praetorian force that exists to protect the regime and, in the case of Putin's so-called National Guard, is now forming specialized units that include tank formations. This is not what a leader uses for internal security. It's what they build when they know the consequences of their actions are.
And then there's this fucking guy. Don't remember what his fucking name is, but all he can do is sit on this Russian-run television show and talk about how they can nuke things. I hate this guy so much. Hold on, all right, I'm back. Sent 2 reels. All right, we'll take a look at that after this video. We're going on a slightly longer format now. Taking a look, McNippo, at Putin's current state. It looks like a taxi driver too. He kind of does, though. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
Coming, and they need to do whatever they can to maintain control. And Putin knows that the consequences are coming. All of the pressure that Russia now faces from the failure.
Look at all that destruction. Is this AI or is that real? That's my question. I'm looking for signs of AI, you know? But it all looks kind of normal to me. Yeah, I think that's real. If their nukes work as well as their army, should we be worried? Yeah, they did have, you know, I draw some joy from that, because they did have a test of their infamous Satan 2 that failed. Now, I don't know how many other tests there have been that it didn't fail, but yeah, you know what? If we don't know with 100% certainty that it is not working, I'm gonna be worried if someone is launching a nuke. There's a documentary about this street. Really? That would be something cool to see. That would be really cool to see. If they're as efficient as their army, at max 25% of their nukes work. Yeah. But if they have 5,000 of them, that's still a hell of a lot of nukes. Saw it pretty early into the war. It's fucking horrible. The atrocious war crimes the orcs did to these people and all over the Ukraine for that matter is insane. Yeah. Dude, there's like... The level of barbarism is so extreme, you know. It's what they do to the women. I can't even say that here. And I have an acquaintance who's been in Ukraine. He's been fighting in Ukraine, and I met him after he'd been there for a year, and like he had aged, man. He had aged more than a decade in less than a year, and the things that he had to talk about, the torture chambers. It's just the smell of it. Something he was really fixated on. Like the level of barbarism just amazes me.
Of the Ukraine invasion through to the intense economic pressure placed on the country by sanctions is now coming to a head. Questions are being asked about the fragility of Putin's regime, perhaps for the first time since he came to power. Diverging opinions, though certainly not loud enough to destroy Putin, are being expressed, especially on the subject of the economy.
But it's still, Putin's regime faces mounting pressure, but it's still far from collapse. Yeah. I think insight into Russia is incredibly difficult to get. I don't think we're going to understand that an inside collapse is happening or about to happen before it happens. You guys agree with that? I think it's going to happen incredibly suddenly. And I don't think anyone is going to have any knowledge of it possibly happening. But I do think it's going to happen. I do hope it's going to happen.
The globalist argues that a split is forming between Putin and many of the elites that he himself put into power. They may pretend to support this war in Ukraine and are happy to profit from it, but they desperately want the hostilities to end, the globalist says.
Yeah, because the globalist he's talking about is oligarchs now, I'm guessing. The elite. I guess Putin gets in trouble when he starts touching their money, right? When the rich lose their wealth, that's when the risk of them turning against him arrives. Am I right about that? But what kind of power do they have, though? Like in a corrupt country like this, I suspect it can be a lot. but it's very hard to get a grasp of how bad it can be.
As their main interest in making more money conflicts with Putin's nationalistic and egotistical goals of turning Russia, and by extension himself, into one of the world's foremost powers. Putin can feel this shift in support. He knows that it's coming. And
he was already the richest man in the world, unofficially. No one really knows, but it's speculated. What more? Why would he do this? So stupid. Kind of like BlackRock and Rothschild. In what sense, though? I know those two names. How do they intertwine? I don't know anything about that, Mignipo.
So what we're seeing with the Rosgvardia is a sign that Putin's paranoia about what comes next, whether that's after the war or in the months and years that the war continues to wage with no conclusion, has gotten the best of him. Simply creating a national security force into a military power inside Russia is a strong enough signal that Putin is getting worried. The fact that the Rosgvardia operates outside of the Russian Defense Ministry is enough to create problems. As Dixon puts it, the Rosgvardia is now a flashpoint for further division, which will make succession more difficult and ultimately tries to center all of Russia's power on one man who, at 73 years old, likely doesn't have long left to maintain that power.
Yeah, and for how long is he going to remain healthy? I mean, 73 is... You're not a stallion anymore at 73, right? How long is he going to be mentally fit to rule? How long is he going to be physically fit to rule? Okay, I found it. For anyone who wants to check it out, it's called something like the Buka Massacre. I'm gonna screenshot that too, and I'll see. I'm gonna watch this one, and I wanna watch some more funny clips. I'll check out what Nippo sent me. And then we're gonna do. I'm gonna let the serious ones lay for a little bit. Maybe I'll check it out tomorrow. We'll see. But tomorrow, I have something special planned for tomorrow. Actually, something weird, something kind of funny. We'll talk more about that later. Healthy? You're saying that Putin is healthy to start with? There's a lot of speculation that he isn't. But no, I don't know anything about his physical health. But I don't suspect he's mentally healthy. I'm going to send the vid in DC, but do not show it here. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the heads up. I might watch it and redact it for community watching. We'll see. I might not. Buchama, I've heard about that name, you see. I've heard about it.
What Putin has done is create a situation where multiple power centers will grapple over the Russian reins long after he is gone. Putin himself has raised the subject of succession before, back in May.
You think Russia could, with different leadership, you think it could be turned around into a positive, productive member of the world? Or do you think it will always be a corrupt dictatorship? Do you think it can change? Because I don't think one man is enough to change it. And, I've seen leaders been swapped out before, and the problem is you never know what you're going to get. Reminds me of what my good friend Forrest Gump once said. But I think the odds are it can't get much worse, right?
May 2025, the New Voice of Ukraine reported on a Russian documentary entitled Russia, Kremlin, Putin, 25 years.
Of succession.
Putin himself is filmed claiming that a person must emerge, or better yet, several, so people have a choice who could earn the trust of the country's citizens.
There's never been an election, though. He always wins with 80 to 100% vote. 80 to 100% of the votage. Rothschild's a really powerful Jewish family, and BlackRock's a really powerful company. That I know. I know these two things, but I don't know how they clash or how they intertwine. McNippo. It always gets worse. Look at what happened in Iraq with ISIS. Yeah, true, exactly. That's my point exactly. I have belief that the next leader will do better, but obviously no solid evidence. And yeah, it can get a hell of a lot worse. Well, right now, I feel like I'm looking at the worst.
Putting aside how ridiculous that statement is for an autocrat verging on a dictator to make, what we see here is, simply put, a lie. Putin doesn't care about succession. Putin cares about Putin. and the strengthening of the Rosgvardia is one of the signs that Putin is utterly willing to relinquish his grip on power, even as that grip falters. Putin is preparing for a fight. Or more accurately, he's attempting to protect himself from the inevitability of the breakdown of the regime that he has spent a quarter of a century developing.
Yeah, but who can control the Rosgvardia, though? That's my main concern. There has to be someone corrupt enough to under him, even, that can take the reins on that. And they basically own the U.S. government. Okay. I've heard of them. I'd like to see more on them, though. I'll definitely get to looking into them a little bit more.
We'll be getting deeper into that and other signs of Putin's fear of the destructive force that is closing in around him in a moment. But before we do, if this is the kind of insight that you want more of, make sure you're subscribed to the
Military Show, man. They just passed 2 million subscribers, actually. If y'all haven't subscribed, do it, man. I really, really love this channel. I watch a lot of their videos. When I see the interesting ones, I save them for you guys so we can watch them here. And I hope that you enjoy that. Serpic says, I nominate Cal to take over Russia and fix it. I don't volunteer, man. I would be a terrible leader of a country, man. I think I have the heart. I think I have my heart in the right place, but I don't think I would be kind enough. I don't think I would be smart enough. But I love the idea of it.
Now the Putin regime. What are we really seeing with the strengthening of the Rosgvardia? According to noted military analyst and YouTube creator Paul Warburg, this, along with other signs that we're about to cover, is a symptom of the breakdown of an entire regime. This is Putin putting steps in place to control the internal Russian narrative as he tries to maintain the image of himself as the strong man of Russian politics, even as his Ukraine invasion crumbles around him.
I mean, that's not working anymore. Come on. Is anyone really believing that? No, it's just the fact that he has power, you know. Hold on. Postosman could be trusted in Nuke Man with unlimited bath maidens. Yes, I dub thee Nuke Man. They're really rich. Russia start fake companies, buys right stuff, and sues big companies for copyright. And BlackRock buys a bunch of land and houses, sell them for more, or put them up for rent. Yeah, I've heard about that. I've heard about BlackRock's whole renting scheme there. It's terrible, though. We need to build out the bunkers in Dovre first. We should just all go to Finland. They got the bunkers set up in there. The launch codes would fall in bath accidentally, though. Yeah, I would gladly give you that title and the maidens to go with it.
What we need to do is look at the past to see what's happening in Putin's paranoid present.
All right.
When we look at the history in the twilight days of authoritarian regimes, it's very often the case that those regimes seem the strongest that they ever have, and their words sound more confident than they did at the beginning. Warburg says of what we're seeing with Putin now. But this strength is a smokescreen, an illusion cast by a failing dictator who knows that his grip on power is faltering and is weak.
Yeah, it's like when you see a big dog bark at a little dog. Sorry, a little. It's like when you see a little dog bark at a big dog, and the big dog pulls away, right? Because he's scared of the barking. But you do that to a Cane Corso. The Cane Corso has a hell of a lot more bite than the little Chihuahua, right? But yeah, that is what we're seeing here. Finland, you can just go down to Fornebu. No, I don't. I have zero belief in the bunkers we have in Norway. They're not prepped. They're not ready. There's not enough of them, and I rather not be around Fornebu. It's not my hood. And you see, suing Google for a small sum of 1.2 quintillion. No, I didn't see that, but I'm getting that one just got tossed, right? What fucking bunkers? I've lived in the city for 12 years. I still don't know where the closest bunker is. But you should look at a documentary. Just search up on YouTube, Finnish bunkers. And then you're going to realize, oh shit, Cal was right about this one. Because it's two things the Finnish are known for. Bunker and artillery. And you guys really have control over that. And you are the only country in the world, besides Finland, besides the Swiss, I believe, who you have enough bunkers to fit your entire population. Everyone can get to safety. You say they're all by yourself. You might survive in like Fallout Las Vegas, just Fallout Oslo. That would be great though. I would appreciate that. That would be a lovely, lovely story right there. I'm going to write a book about that. Think about that. There's a bunker under like every store and sauna. Yeah, I know. Swiss is a turtle country. Finland is too, man. But Finland's got fangs. Finland's got fangs to boot.
Have been exposed, not just to the world, but to the people inside his own country that he's trying to control. Don't look at the words, Warburg explains. Look at the actions. And right now, there are a lot of actions that Putin is taking that are surefire signs that the regime he created is collapsing. The attempt to strengthen a supposed national security force into what amounts to a military unit controlled solely by Putin.
That makes a lot of sense, though. Like, why strengthen your internal security forces now when your soldiers are needed on the border of your war, the war that you started, Putin? You wanted this. That makes a lot of sense.
Controlled solely by Putin is just one of those signs. Another comes from what we're seeing in the peace talks right now. Ever since US President Donald Trump started to force an end to the Ukraine war by starting peace talks in early 2025, we have seen Putin play the same game. He talks about wanting peace while doing things that indicate that he has no intention of ending the war that he started.
Yeah, it's like going to a meeting with Trump, and then the meeting was about talking about a ceasefire, simultaneously launching one of the single biggest assaults they've pulled off.
In other words, Putin does what Warburg says, talks a big game while taking actions that prove he intends to do the opposite of what he says. Even as recently as February 19th, in the wake of yet another round of peace talks, The Guardian reported on comments made by both Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and the European Union, or EU. Zelensky once again accused Putin of using delay tactics to stall negotiations, as Putin will not shift on his maximalist demands that Ukraine must cede territory to gain peace. As for the EU, the bloc's foreign affairs spokesperson.
And that was so incredible, this interview, you know. Why aren't you wearing a suit? The funny thing is, did you see that? Probably Putin got wind of that, because he, shortly after, he appeared in military uniform.
And Anwar El-Anouni put it simply, stating,
let's face it, this is a good role model right there. I can understand why Putin would look up to him.
We see that Russia continues its relentless attacks on Ukraine. This does reflect that Russia is not ready for peace. We still do not see tangible signs that Russia is engaging seriously on peace.
No. There's no peace with them. The Kremlin do not want peace in any way, shape, or form.
Warburg says that Russia isn't even trying to pretend that it's interested in peace anymore. What we're really seeing here is what Warburg pointed to earlier. Putin is trying to be strong with his words, with his claims that Ukraine has to give up territory precisely because he knows that the collapse of his regime is closer than ever before. Putin can't afford to stop in Ukraine because he knows that a fight is bubbling up at home, so he's doing everything that he can to delay the inevitable.
Yeah, this is purely speculative here, but Putin's popularity, what would I call that though? If I'm saying popularity, I'm using the wrong word here. Yes, the satisfaction that the people had with Putin was dropping severely. I don't know, I guess since 2012, up to 2014 then. What did Putin do? He went and took Crimea, right? And that strengthened, and this is a proven tactic, you know, it's been done before. Like if your popularity falters, just start a war, you know, and we will gather as a people. And that happens, you know, even if people don't support the war. And then Putin got more support. And of course, it was declining. And that's when he went and tried to take Ukraine and failed at it miserably because his army is weak and pathetic. And all his equipment is rotten. And all the leadership is corrupt. And Russians just can't fight. That's why that happened, by the way. And so he did that to gain popularity, basically, and gain the vote of approval by his people. But at this point, though, he's not winning. So I guess that sort of backfired more than a little bit. Let's see the thing. Did events? Yeah, I think he does, man. I think he does. He doesn't like to be on memes, though. Like a dad scolding a boy who misbehaved. Yeah, exactly. That's what he is like.
We'll explain why Putin is so paranoid about the upcoming fight against Russia itself toward the end of the video, so keep watching to learn more. However, for now, Putin's proclamations of strength in peace negotiations aren't being matched by the actions he's taking in Russia itself. The Rosgvardia is being strengthened because Putin needs a tangible force that he can use to control the narrative around himself, if and when Russia's people or its returning soldiers rebel. However, Putin has taken a more direct step that makes it
his soldiers repel. I really hope they do.
Clear to everybody in Russia that he is desperate to control the message that surrounds the Kremlin.
Some of them already have.
A mass media crackdown is underway in Russia, and it's all being designed to placate Putin's paranoia. Simultaneously, though, while Russia does this with their words and acts strong with their words, Warburg says of Putin's refusal to seriously engage in peace talks,
they still get their asses beat.
Russia is having the biggest media crackdown in Russian history. We haven't seen anything like this since the Soviet era, and it's a crackdown that is so comprehensive that it would actually make Joseph Stalin excited, Warburg says.
This, I bet, is in reference to Telegram, though. Losing that's a big deal, guys.
Over the past couple of weeks, Putin has throttled Russian access to both WhatsApp and Telegram. The latter in particular is painful for the average Russian and the soldiers on the Ukraine war front lines. For average Russians, they lose access to an open communication platform that is used by a huge portion of the country, including about 85% of Russians aged 12 to 24.
Yeah, that's
a pretty large segment of the younger Russian population that is losing access to news that comes from sources other than those approved by the Kremlin. And that's the point for Putin. He doesn't want anybody in Russia getting any big ideas about overthrowing him, especially not the younger people who have the potential, no matter how far-flung it might seem, to organize into a fighting force while they're in their physical prime.
Yeah, because it's not just the old folks, who don't know how to use the internet, who fall for the propaganda. There's a lot of reasonable young men, who get this force-fed to them their entire lives, and they have another source of information. And the propaganda works. It really does. And this is one of the many, many steps to control the population so they can have access to outside information, and get a little bit of information of how it was. Do you remember when Ukraine first invaded? Sorry, when I said that wrong. Do you remember when Russia first invaded? And they actually genuinely expected to be greeted as liberators and heroes of Ukraine. No, that wasn't happening. Old people were fighting them, literally. Pensioners came out of their home, throwing stuff at them, and they're like, "We're here to liberate you." They genuinely thought that. And that is because the propaganda machine never stops spinning. Getting access to information in a country like this, very, very hard. Even though Putin would have a sit-down with Zelensky, wouldn't believe a single word coming out of the roach's mouth. Remember the agreement they had when Ukraine handed over their nukes to Russia in exchange for promise the Russians never invade Ukraine? Yeah, I do. And they were promised protection by a whole bunch of countries who didn't show up for them. Which I think is such a damn shame, man. Yeah, there's no believing. I never believe a word that comes out of that roach's mouth. Lavrov, Putin, basically any Russian politician. Wait, the Germans thought the same when they came to Norway. Did they? Did they think they were going to be considered liberators? I haven't heard that one.
On February 20th, Putin took things another step further. Russia's president chose that date to sign a new law that obliges Russia's telecommunications operators to disconnect communications if required to do so by the Federal Security Service, or FSB.
So basically, if Putin says disconnect said person's phone line, is disconnected.
Operators will have to cut access to the internet for people in regions where Russia is experiencing terrorist threats.
Cookies and cakes. Hey, a Molotov cocktail is still a cocktail, though.
Which roughly translates to Putin wanting to make sure that there is no way for anybody in Russia to actually communicate with the outside world when Ukraine attacks an oil refinery or military facility. It's all about controlling the narrative. And in Putin's desperation, we're seeing the death throes of a leader who knows time is short. For as damaging as all of this is to...
I wonder how he's going to do it to himself. In a bunker? Alone? I don't know. I don't know. I wonder how he's gonna end it. You need to visit Hjemmefrontsmuseet. I should, man. I should. Same here. Remember their Liberators Parade March in Tummusalmi, Battle of Rote Road. You know what? That's those names don't ring a bell, but I'm willing to bet that I've heard of it. But it doesn't ring a bell right now.
Russia's people, Putin's shut down of communication services, especially Telegram, basically sees Putin's sabotage.
Damn, that's a lot of tanks, though. There must be all the tanks Russia has left that they moved out of the museum.
His own military. TVP World reports that the Kremlin crackdown on Telegram has prompted a backlash from many in Russia. For the military, the loss of the app also amounts to losing a key platform that allowed soldiers to organize assaults and communicate on the front lines.
So they're not taking it lightly. Actually, there is a reaction to it. But is it a strong enough reaction to it, though? And will it trigger a chain reaction?
What Telegram did is it allowed Russian soldiers to share pictures and videos with each other extremely quickly so that they could be responsive on the battlefield, Warburg explains.
Exactly.
That was vital for Russia's drone operators, as it allowed for quick identification of targets. Elsewhere on the front, Russia's soldiers would have been using Telegram to document Ukraine's fortifications and organize assaults against Ukrainian positions. All of that is now gone. It's no coincidence that Putin is buffing up his internal security force at around the same time that he's sabotaging his own army. And make no mistake about it, Putin knows precisely what he's doing to the Russian military by stamping.
That's going to be a huge win, though, in April. Is shutting it down in April, right? That's going to be such a win for Ukraine. I cannot wait to see April and May and see what they can come up with. Slav Ukraini all the way. You know that. I just hope they get to take back a lot of the land that they lost. And I hope that is a very solid start to their retaking of their home. Hold on. Battle of Rote was pure ponnage of orcs. I have no doubt, man. We all know the Finnish have the White Death, and I'm sure that's not the only butcher that the Finnish had. It's the one country I don't want to mess with. It is the Finns. Nope, not fighting that.
Down on Telegram. When you see an authoritarian country starting to sabotage their military effectiveness to better control the narrative at home, that shows a shift in that particular dictator's thinking, Warburg explains.
It does. Which, I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Do you think we're drawing to a conclusion of the war now? You think this is the first sign? Strengthening of the military inside of your home, weakening your own military, the way that he is taking control of the Rosgvardia as well. Do you guys think that this is the beginning of the end? I sure still think so. I dare be hopeful.
Dixon said the same when referring to the strengthening of the Rosgvardia, and it all comes down to Putin now being more concerned with information control than he is with winning the war. The invasion of Ukraine is just something that Putin is keeping chugging along so that he can avoid the inevitable.
This is for him, this is just chess. He has meat grinders. Sorry, he has people to throw into the meat grinder, and he has a lot of money. He doesn't really care about these lives at all. The Battle of Sosolami, Battle of Rote Road. 6,000 versus 13,000. Oh my god. 310 dead Finns. And 7,000 to 9,000 dead orcs. Hell! I'd love to know how they did that. Love to watch a documentary on that. Out of war, tired of paying 23 crowns for diesel. Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what, though. Like, you can feel the impact of this war in every bit of the economy, in every single step. No matter what you buy, you're feeling a little. And yes, I am sick of it, but I'm willing to pay this to make sure that my tiny contribution somehow helped the Ukrainians out a little bit, because we can't give the Russians what they want. They can't win this.
The war that he faces now that his power of patronage has collapsed. Dictators like Putin stay in power not because they have the support of their people, but because they create what Engelsberg Ideas calls the people of the dictator. This is almost always a minority of people, accounting for between 2 and 20% of a country's population.
Something in common there with the MAGA population, huh? A small population of exceptionally loud people throwing themselves at their leader, accepting everything he does, even the stupid things that they have previously condemned. So Putin and Trump, not too far off from each other. What do you guys think?
But that's enough for a dictator to maintain control. For instance, Putin has previously controlled the Russian military because he would personally offer promotions. He would enable the corruption that allowed officers and head honchos to make money. Any form of public service becomes a gift from the dictator, Engelsberg Ideas says. And that arrangement can only last as long as there is money and power to distribute to the people the dictator wants to control. Putin is running out of both. He knows it, and that's why he's trying hard to control the internal narrative now inside Russia. Putin understands that he's created a horrorscape for Russia, both in terms of the country's position right now and what it faces in the future.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, future, man. Does it have one? It's all the intellectuals, all the engineers, all the big brains, all the skilled laborers. Everyone has fled Russia at the start of the war. Like, when it's done, who's going to rebuild Russia? It'll just be way worse off than it was. Hold on. Have you heard about the ghost stories or demon stories? Got an animal figure run around the Russians and abduct them and eat them in his lair. They found the rifles with ammo still in the guns, but no bodies. Yeah, I'd be telling ghost stories too. If I was a Russian general and I lost 70% of my unit to just a couple of FIDs, I'd be telling demon stories and ghost stories as well. So, no doubt.
Whatever grand schemes that Putin had for victory in Ukraine have long ago crumbled. Putin absolutely isn't going to become the modern-day equivalent of the great Tsars of Russia because all he's done in Ukraine is prove his own inadequacy, even if Russia eventually wins.
You've proved that your greed triumphed over everything. You're the richest man in the world. And this is all you've attained. You were personally wealthy. You sit at banquet while your people starve. It's about the only thing that you achieved, man. You're no great Tsar. You're not the rebuilder of the Soviet Union.
That victory, assuming it ever comes, has already taken out far more from Russia than anybody ever anticipated. It's that fact, combined with Putin having no idea of what to do with a returning army of hundreds of thousands of brutalized soldiers, that leads to everything that we see now. Putin knows that a war to maintain power in his own country is coming, so shutting down communications and building his own private army is really all about protecting himself from the possibility that Russia's people and perhaps even its military will revolt.
Yeah, what do you think will happen though when hundreds of thousands of battered Russian soldiers come home to basically nothing? You think they're just gonna roll around and take it?
Rand makes that point in a February 20th article by John Teft, who outlines the many problems that Putin has created in Russia. The country has a declining population that isn't being aided by the war. According to the UN, Russia will have between 74 and 112 million people in 2100, down from the 146 million it has today.
That's a
Independent civil society
decline,
and opposition
guys.
Political activity are already being suppressed radically in Russia, Teft points out. And Putin...
I've heard something about China taking over parts of Russia in a sneaky, stealthy manner as well. Y'all heard anything about that? That they're sort of coming in a little bit from the east now, but not doing so in a military fashion? Am I wrong about that?
Putin still has no solution for the problem of the returning soldiers. About 8,000 of Russia's returning veterans have already been convicted of civil crimes since they came back home, Teft points out, and around 900 have committed violent crimes, resulting in the deaths of at least 423 people.
Yeah, when you normalize war when you're so young, though, and again with the barbarism of the Russian army, where war crimes are sort of like, they're very normalized. No wonder you come back home a scarred animal yourself.
This is a microcosm of what Putin believes he may have to face in a future where his war has crippled Russia more than it already has. Imagine hundreds of thousands of angry soldiers coming back home to a country that is on its knees and is even more authoritarian than it was when they left. You get a powder keg, a situation in which the soldiers and the people realize that the war that Putin has waged was for nothing in terms of improving their lot in life. That anger is the core ingredient for a civil war breaking out. A war in which the people that Putin wants to control rise up against him, and as much as Putin tries to guard against this type of societal upheaval, he is simply following the handbook that all dictators follow before their collapse. More control, more suppression, sabotage against a military that has already lost almost 1.26 million people to war in Ukraine.
That makes me, not the 1.26 million though, but it makes me so glad to hear that it's looking like a textbook. What should we say? The crescendo before the fall? Can we call it that?
For Putin, holding power over a ruined country is better than moving out of the way for a better tomorrow. The Rosgvardia getting stronger is a signal that Putin has shifted his focus to his new enemy. That enemy isn't Ukraine, it's Russia itself. And Russia will have to rise up against Putin because a century of destruction lies in its future if it doesn't.
They already have, man.
The country's entire future hangs in the balance as Russia bleeds out soldiers and is facing up to a demographic crisis that will haunt the country, all because of Putin. Find out more in our...
And I love that. Give this, I'm going to put the link to this video in the channel, guys. I'm going to click like on it myself. It's a damn good video. I love this channel. Just go click like yourself. I'd appreciate it if y'all did that. And I will, hell yeah, follow them, man. There's a couple of channels out there that are really good. Now, let's see. I have a ton of videos here. But for sure, you sent something as well, didn't you? But I can't see it. Where'd you put it?